Hi, everybody. Welcome to GW Center for Integrative Medicine YouTube channel. I'm Dr. Misha Kogan, Medical Director, Associate Professor of Medicine at George Washington University, and also Medical Director of GW-CIM. So today, continuing with the topic of Alzheimer's, you know that's a topic of our big interest. I would like to talk a little bit about this new medication that has been designed by the Eli Lilly. The drug's called Donanemab. It's spelled D-O-N-A-N-E-M-A-B. This is one of the new medications for Alzheimer's that is designed to clear plaques and tangles. It's similar drug in a way. It has differences, which I'm not going to describe, but it's a similar drug to a medication that's been approved by FDA. Very controversial approval, which led to several FDA members leaving the panel after the approval because they were in disagreement with this approval. So that drug called Aducanumab, which is now in practice and actually is covered by many insurances. So what I want to particularly concentrate here is a concern about how the data is presented by pharmaceutical industry, and really to show you the fact that while the sensationalism of some of the news that's been following this, it's an internal study. It's a study by the company itself. How, in essence, it's very misleading, and not just misleading, but very on purpose designed to attract sensationalism without actual true explanation of the meaning of the impact. So I'm going to share my screen as usual. So this is directly Eli Lilly website. Notice that says investors here. So this is the news release that just got released on May 3rd. I believe I'm recording today. This day is May 4th, so the next day after this got released. So you see that in the study, in the phase 3 controlled study, so this was against the placebo, nearly half, 47% of participants on this medication compared to 30% had no clinical progression at 1 year, defined as no decline in a particular measure, which is relatively standard. So you're going to think of this, oh, wow, so almost double the patients didn't progress. But the trick is that the devil is in details. So if you think about Alzheimer's disease, we think of the untreated placebo-based Alzheimer's disease will uniformly progress. So the first natural question that anybody should be asking, wait a second, so 30%, 1/3 of patients in the placebo group did not get worse. What does it tell you? What it tells you that what they really did, they picked the patients so early that naturally occurring, a large proportion of these patients is progressing so slowly that at 12 months mark, you're not seeing a difference, or you're not seeing significant clinically and statistically significant difference. So it sounds like, wow, like, right? Well, let me give you some comparison. So of course, you've seen that in Bredesen, 84% of similar patients got better. I'm not saying stability, they got better, right? And control study will prove or disprove this. Or if you look at the other studies, like we're about to publish uncontrolled study on the light therapy, where we had some people who got better and some significant percentage just stayed stable. So here they talk about not a single patient getting better. And this is what I really want to emphasize. The design of this trial may say like, oh, wow, it's such a good result. You know, we're twice better than placebo, but it reminds me of this whole thing like, okay, well, we're doing horrible. Okay, we're going to do just slightly less horrible for the price that's going to be dramatic. And here's the point. In this study, particularly, if you carefully look, so the study was called Trailblazer LZ2. If you look at, so if you scroll some of these things down and talk about, you know, few things here. So like, first of all, 52, only half of participants completed the course of treatment for 1 year. So a lot of people dropped out, you know, right? So there's a concern, right? So there's certain concerns that are not immediately on the surface. You have to carefully read what they're reporting. By the way, the study was pretty sizable. That's a strength. So the strength is that they recruited a lot of patients. So their primary analysis recruited 1,700 patients. And here is the actual problem. So you have about 20% over the baseline in chances of stability. So from 29%, so let's say 30% to almost 50%. So you got that 20% increment of not progressing. But here's the cost of it. So I'm going to read this to you verbatim. The incidence of amyloid-related imaging abnormalities was consistent with the trailblaze phase 2 studies. Area is observed with amyloid. So basically what they're looking for is an abnormal signal on MRI that is consistent with brain edema or bleeding or something. It's basically a massive severe complication. If it progresses, it can easily kill patients. And yes, there were deaths in other trials. We have to talk about this particular one. But basically, let me finish reading. ARIA, which is the definition for amyloid-related imaging abnormalities, is the observed with an amyloid plaque clearing antibody class of therapies, which this one is similar to Aducanumab, and is most commonly observed as a temporary swelling in an area or areas of the brain, or as microhemorrhages, so small bleeds, or superficial siderosis, which is deposition of iron as a result of a bleeding. In either case detected by MRI. In an overall treatment group, it was 24. A quarter of the patients had an abnormality that could theoretically turn into the massive bleed and kill the patient, right? So we're not talking about I have a weakness or I'm nauseous or I have a pain in my belly that we can manage with Tylenol. I'm talking about the possibility of a deadly serious side effect at the 24%, with 6% experiencing symptomatic. So 6% of all these patients actually had symptoms related to this abnormality. In 31% in the active group and in 13% in the placebo group. So this difference is it's over 200%. So what this means is that for 20% stability, there's almost a 20% difference in a worsening and a serious side effect. The majority of these cases were mild to moderate and resolved or stabilized with appropriate management, which means we're going to stop the therapy, right? So is usually, most of them were asymptomatic, although serious and life-threatening events can occur. And the reason they're just saying it that way is because they haven't run the study long enough, right? Because if they do, the number of these episodes will accumulate. There's no question about that's what's been seen with the other study, and it's an expected problem. In this study, the incidence of serious concerns was 1.6%, including 2 participants whose death was attributed to it. So let me point this out. Out of 1,700 patients, they killed 2. And they're just clear about it. They killed 2 patients for the stability of the 30%. When we have a treatments currently with the lifestyle modifications that don't kill anybody, have no serious side effects, and dramatically more infection. So I'm going to wrap up at this point, but I'm going to read you some of the statements here in terms of what they think about this. So this is by neuroscientist Mark Minton. We're encouraged by the potential clinical benefit that this drug may provide, although like many effective treatments for debilitating and fatal disease, there is an associated risk that may be serious and life-threatening. So I'll leave you all with that final statement. Checks and balances. I think this medication, just like Aducanumab, is going to take its place. I do believe that it will lead to the FDA approval just based on this particular study, mostly because I do think that a lot of patients will be willing to take a risk, especially if insurance covers this. I will leave ethics and politics aside. This drug most likely going to be comparably priced to the Aducanumab, which we're looking at about somewhere between probably $50,000 to $100,000 a year. And that would, I'm talking about the full amount, which includes the oversight with requirement for regular MRIs, for regular physician visits and checks. So compare that to about $10,000 to $15,000 cost of lifestyle. I'm talking about RICO, the Bredesen program, that has dramatically more benefits, and the randomized controlled trial, of course, is coming soon. But so yeah, and I'm gonna finish this with basically disagreeing and adamantly saying that Eric Raymond, CEO of Urbana Research, who basically said amyloid plaque is defining pathophysiology feature of Alzheimer's disease. I'm going to disagree with this. It's not a defining pathophysiology feature. It's a long-term consequence of a defense mechanism by the body. It's the body trying to defend itself, and removing the defense mechanism is going to have very little benefit for the long-term modification of disease process. There's going to be a temporary improvement because you're removing a trigger to the death cell, to the cell death for a period of time, but you're doing zero, you're doing zip, nothing to the underlying process of Alzheimer's. You're not treating what drives it. You're not treating inflammation with this drug. You're not treating nutritional deficiencies. You're not treating hormonal deficiencies. You're not treating toxic load. You're not treating chronic infections. You're not treating chronic microbiome disturbances. You're treating no Alzheimer's driver. You're treating superficial level of pathology that in the past used to be thought to be pathophysiologic attributes. So meaning that it was causing Alzheimer's. It is not causing Alzheimer's. It's a sign. It's just like we use statin. When we take a cholesterol marker, it's just a marker. Yes, we're lowering cholesterol, but it's an anti-inflammatory drug. It's not the cholesterol itself. It's an exactly same here with the plaques. So unfortunately, I think the history of this drug, mark my word, is going to be not very long. Just like with Aducanumab, I believe that this medication, as well as Aducanumab, will end up over time being replaced with something else, and possibly, it will probably take some very narrow applicability or application. And if your loved one is seriously looking for a treatment that will give your loved one or yourself a sustainable chance of recovery from Alzheimer's and much better quality of life long term, I don't think this drug is going to offer this. I think that it may have some applications for stability. Of course, that's what the trial shows. But if you're looking for a reversal of your condition, this is not it. And then you definitely want to look at the number of different lifestyle programs. There are several of them. I just mentioned RICO just because this is what we do, but that's not the only one. And so with that, thank you for your time. I hope you're doing well and stay safe. And please subscribe to this channel and stay tuned for more information on up-to-date things in all things integrative medicine, Alzheimer's, spirituality and medicine, and many other aspects of healing. Take care. Bye-bye.